I do not think it's presidential for me to be splashed with ice water, so I'm simply going to write you a check. Oh!
That check is for me. I don't want to ruin my hairstyle.
It was the viral sensation that had everyone from presidents to athletes, even CEOs, taking the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. The videos were viewed more than 10 billion times, that's with a B, on Facebook last year, and the campaign raised over $100 million to fight the rare neurological condition better known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Well, now it's paying off. Scientists at Johns Hopkins University announced a major breakthrough in ALS research. Research they say couldn't have happened without the money raised by the Ice Bucket Challenge. Joining me now is the mom who is credited with kicking off the Ice Bucket Challenge, Nancy Frates. Nancy's son Pete was diagnosed with ALS back in 2012. I'm also joined by one of the researchers involved in that study, Dr. Jonathan Link. Thank you very much both for joining us. So great news all around. Nancy, I want to begin with you and get you reaction to this great news that has come out.
Oh, it's overwhelming. We knew the day my son was diagnosed that the researchers were underfunded. The disease was underfunded, underheard of, and wasn't included. And that's what really ignited us to raise awareness, so that we knew the awareness would lead to funding so that these researchers could speed up their process.
And Nancy, tell us and to our viewers, I mean, how did all of this start? And more importantly, did you ever think that it would become such a hit?
Well, in our dreams. 6 hours after my 27-year-old son was diagnosed with this disease, he set a vision. He said we were going to change the world. We were going to move the trajectory. His mental toughness in documenting his journey was what was the catalyst for all this. The fact that he said, I'm going to document everything that happens to me. In 3 short years, my son, who was a Division I baseball player, went from hitting home runs all around Boston to today he's completely paralyzed. He's on a feeding tube. He can't speak. He can't swallow. And he can't breathe on his own anymore. So we knew our story was compelling. We knew it was relatable. But we also knew that we had to get it out there so that people really understood. Because you know what, Amin? I would go back to the moment I was told he was diagnosed. I was one of the worst culprits. I had heard of ALS. I had heard of Lou Gehrig. But really, I did not know the horrific and unbelievable journey that this puts its patients through, with a 3 to 5 year prognosis, with no treatment and no cure.
And Nancy, talk to us a little bit about how you are, through your own personal experience, what you've done with ALS. How are you helping other people, other families, other moms that are coping through what you went through?
Well, I think, first of all, we're talking about ALS. ALS wasn't in the public consciousness. We know that there's only 30,000 Americans living with the disease at one time. But the stat is every 90 minutes, someone is diagnosed with this disease. Every 90 minutes, someone dies from this disease. So the greatest things that I've heard since the Ice Bucket Challenge in the last year is that when people are being diagnosed with it now, they know there's a community. They know that there are people that are out there, the families and the supporters of other patients are working towards keeping the funding coming so these researchers can get a treatment and cure. You know, in our disease, time is the enemy. So the faster we can get treatments, researchers getting these things from the bench to the patient is of most importance.
I'd like to bring Jonathan into this discussion. Jonathan, at the time there was a lot of discussion about whether the money was going to be used. There was questions surrounding whether this was a form of just, the fad of the moment on the internet. But you're on the front lines of fighting this disease, trying to come up with a cure for it. Explain to us how the money raised from this specific challenge helped you with your research and led to this breakthrough.
Right. Well, you see, our work has been going on for quite some time now, and it wasn't until the Ice Bucket Challenge money came in that we really accelerated it in the past year or so. And from the Ice Bucket Money Challenge, we've received the funds to make this breakthrough in science. Now, the Ice Bucket Money Challenge is also funding the preclinical work that's going on right now as we speak to bring this into a therapeutic cure and also develop biomarkers for this disease. So it's been exceptionally helpful.
I've tried to wrap my head a little bit around the science. It's very difficult perhaps to explain, but maybe you can explain to us, why is it so hard to cure ALS, and maybe what is it about this particular breakthrough that has been so beneficial to your research?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. In about 97% of ALS patients, we've known for about almost a decade now that a protein called TDP-43 seems to leave the nucleus of a cell. Now, the nucleus of a cell is where all your DNA is held. And you can think of it as kind of like a library. What TDP-43 does, it acts as this kind of special librarian that makes sure every single book and instruction manual that you have in your cell doesn't include random nonsense pages. And that really messes up the cell when TDP-43 doesn't function properly. Yeah, so we finally figured out this function, and it's amazingly treatable, possibly.
And a very important breakthrough. We want to thank you, Dr. Jonathan Ling, and your team for all the work you're doing. Nancy Frates, I understand you're doing it again this year. Good luck to you, and thank you so much for your time and your work. That does it for this hour.